much, Astrid. And now I've got something to read out to you. Excellent company to work with. This company is excellent to deal with. Ben makes everything very simple and talks you through each step to give confidence and learn how the transfers work better than any bank I know. I would highly recommend this company to everyone. Their care, consideration and patience is second to none, which is seriously lacking in this online world today. That's in from Patricia Clark today. On the Good Morning Portugal show this morning, I couldn't move for positive comments for Spartan FX. And here to talk about Spartan FX, from Spartan FX, and everything to do with moving money in and out of Portugal is Sarah Davey. Fire Davey to her friends. Hello, Sarah.
Hello. Thanks for having me tonight. It's great to be here. Lovely to receive such nice feedback from our customers. We're just really pleased that you've had such a great experience with us. So tonight we're going to talk about moving your money to Portugal. And I think really one of the things that I'd like you to get out of this webinar is really it's never too early to be looking into how you're going to do that, how you're going to do it and when you're going to do it. I know that in the grand scheme of things, moving to another country, you're looking into visas, you're looking into accommodation, property. It is normally lower down on the list, or it's only thought about when you actually need to do it. But if you look at it in advance, it might make it easier when it comes to doing it, and it might help you buy at the right time, which could save you even more money. So we'll go into that into more detail. So what I thought I'd start with is looking at what moves the market. A lot of people say to me, is there any seasonality to it? A lot of people are going on holiday at the moment. Does that move the market? And it doesn't, none of that really does. It's really more around, there's quite a lot to consider, the economic performance of a country, data releases, anything that's happening with politics or the government or current affairs, and obviously natural disasters as well. So often they can be interlinked as well. So if we look at sort of natural disasters, we've got COVID, but there's other things that have happened in the past. For example, earthquakes. There was an earthquake a few years ago in New Zealand, and that weakened the New Zealand dollar. Basically, obviously, it really impacted the country, impacted productivity, and therefore affected the economic performance of that country. The other thing as well is around sort of government is changing leaders. So, for example, around elections, that's often when we see some big movements. So different, obviously, for natural disasters, we don't know when they're going to happen, but things like that often do move the market quite a lot. There can be quite a lot of rate movement because certainly with elections, there's a lot of uncertainty who's going to win, and that can also weaken the currency as well. So a lot of the times we find that when there's massive rate movements, we've got people calling in, really want to take advantage of those rate movements, but they haven't got an account. So again, that goes back to preparation. It's completely free for you to open an account with a foreign exchange broker. There's no obligation to use them, but at least you're in that position that if there is some rate movements, you can take advantage of them because they can move quite quickly. The other thing as well is data releases. So with them, we're a little bit more prepared. We know when they're going to happen, and sometimes we can forecast for them. And if it comes in as forecasted, then there's not a lot of rate movement. But if it goes against expectations, that's when we see those rate movements. So for example, at the moment, if you're in the UK and you've got sterling and you're buying euros, we have slipped off the high of 118. So we're trading around 117.44, the market rate at the moment. Now that was on the back of inflation figures from the UK. So it was forecast to come in at 2.3%, but they came in at 2%. So it was against expectations, but then the knock-on effect of that is that the Bank of England might increase interest rates a lot sooner than expected, which is negative for the pound. So that's why we've seen that little bit of a movement. I think overall we're expecting it to stay quite steady, but there's still a worry of spikes in the COVID rates, which obviously we've got no control of. So we'll just have to see how that pans out. And if you're selling US dollars and you're buying euros, at the moment, the rate's very good. So I think since May this year to now, we're 4.5% better on the rate. So just to put that into monetary terms for people, if you were investing in a golden visa and you needed to buy 500,000 euros, the difference between May and now is about 22,500 euros.
Wow.
Just on the rate movement. And you may say, well, I'm not doing the golden visa, I'm transferring small amounts of money. If you were doing 20,000 euros, that difference is 900 euros. So there's still savings to be made, and that's just on rate movements. So with the US dollar, what we've seen is that it might not be known to a few people, but it's known as like a safe haven currency. So whenever there's a bit of nervousness in the market, people will start buying US dollars. So obviously, as things have started to improve, vaccines been rolled out, we've seen some positive unemployment data, and we've seen the rate improve. But now obviously we've got this issue, we've seen problems with Afghanistan, which might affect the US dollar. So there's, not to overwhelm people, but there's a lot of things that do go into rate movements. Some will move them bigger than others, but overall it moves very quickly. And that's our job to watch those rates for you. I know listening on Carl's show, we've had comments that a lot of people are watching it yourselves, which is fantastic, but also you have jobs or you've got a lot going on that you're trying to look into with your move. It's just one less hassle to look at. That's our job, to monitor the rates for you, look at all the information that's coming out and help give guidance on what we think is going to happen with the rates of exchange. So really it's just...
Have you got those tonight? It would be great to just check in on. I know some people here would have done it in the last hour because some people have owned up to that. Yeah, I check the rates every hour. Can we have a quick dip into the rates and have a look at what's going on at the moment?
Yeah, so with sterling euro, it's just I looked before I came on, it's 117.44, and euro US dollar is 117.14 at the moment. Okay. If you're from another country and you're doing other currency pairings, we do trade other currencies. Please obviously get in touch and we'll be able to give more currency updates.
Sorry to derail you there, but Scott D was asking that, does Spartan FX work with UK clients only? So clearly there, no. You work with people all over the world, right, at Spartan FX?
All over the world. So especially for Portugal, we're dealing with a lot of people that are in America, in Canada, New Zealand, Australia, all around the world, as well as the UK.
Terrific. That's great. Okay. So you said it's worth thinking about early on in the process, or earlier than people might imagine, so as to get yourself in a state of readiness and not miss out on an opportunity in some ways. How easy is it to do that, to open an account with you?
It's very easy to open an account. As I said, there's no cost to do that, and there's still an obligation to use our service. It's just a case of filling in a form online, asking simple questions around name, address, currency pairing, the amount that you're looking to transfer, and what it is, the reason for the transfer. So there's a few things that we ask for that. One, because we want to know your situation in more detail, because the more we know, the more we can help. But also it means then we know what we need from a compliance perspective. As I said, everyone's situation is different, but on sort of larger amounts, you generally will need to provide some sort of documentation around what's the reason for the transfer and how you acquired the source of funds. Yeah. So things like proof of salary or savings or sale of a house, those sort of things can be used. And again, if it's slightly more complicated, we're used to that, and we can talk you through other options that you might have available for those documents as well. But once you get set up, the account's open. The reason we do the compliance in advance is because we don't want anything to hold up the payment. Often we find sometimes when customers have used sort of just purely online brokers, they ask for that at the end, which you're not expecting, and then that can hold up the payment if you've got a deadline to make. So we make sure that's all done in advance, and then it's a case of speaking to your dealer. You can do it online yourself, or you speak to your dealer and agree the rate on the phone. So once the rate's agreed, you know exactly how much you're going to get in euros and what it's going to cost you. You'll get confirmation, very much like a receipt you'd get in a shop. It just confirms everything that you've agreed to. And on there, there'll also be some bank account details of where you need to send your money to. It'll be in your name, it'll be an account. Once you send the money to us, we can actually receive money in advance as well. So we can hold funds on account before you make the exchange. Again, often that can be from convenience. We can accept funds from third parties. So if your friend, or if you were getting money from a sale of a house and it was coming from a lawyer, a solicitor, we can receive that into your account as well. Once we have your money, we'll then send it on to the account you specify. So again, we can send to your account in Portugal, we can send to a lawyer, we can send to a notaire, we can send to your pool man. Anyone that you need to pay, we can send it to. It's not a problem. If you haven't got an account set up in Portugal, we can hold the money on account for you before you need to transfer that money. And there's no cost for us to hold the money for you. We have heard that some brokers will charge for that, or they won't have the facility to be able to hold the money, but that's fine. We can hold the money at no cost for you.
Excellent stuff. Okay, there's some great questions coming in, and we will get back to those during the webinar this evening. Just to reiterate for Susan, this is Sarah Davey, who's joining us from Spartan FX tonight. And let's talk a little bit more about this, how it's great to have somebody on the end of the telephone rather than necessarily working online all the time. And
Absolutely.
We heard recently, didn't we, that Ben got busy talking on somebody's behalf to somebody in a bank who didn't quite know.
Yes, that's right. Definitely.
This is a bit of a surprise, wasn't it? Somebody in the bank didn't know what an IBAN number was, and you had to
yes,
help out with that.
Definitely. Although I spoke to somebody yesterday who lives in Spain, and they've had a similar issue with their Spanish bank. So it's obviously a common problem with banks. So the situation happened that the client went into their bank. This was an American client, and the bank teller wasn't. We do find that a lot of the local branches don't have experience sending internationally or large sums of money. So they weren't sure. They had never really seen an international IBAN number. They weren't sure which part was the account number or the sort code, where they needed to fill that in to send the money. So they called Spartan FX. Ben happened to answer the phone. The client put Ben on the phone with the bank teller, and Ben talked the bank teller through the process, and they were able to send the money. So yes,
that is quite amazing, isn't it? And that illustrates the point, really, doesn't it? If you were to ring a bank up and ask for somebody by name, it probably wouldn't work out very well, would it? But at Spartan FX, you could ask for Ben, as everybody will be doing now. And we do have to urge some caution here, because we understand that Ben's wife is not entirely happy about him doing these deals at 11 o'clock at night, which he has been doing, right? He's been taking calls very late into the evening. So, Mrs. Ben, we apologise here and now from the webinar here, but he's been working very hard, hasn't he, just recently?
He has, yes. I mean, we have more members of staff within the team, but Ben, as I said, we really want you to build that relationship with us. So Ben does come on the show as well, on Carl's Tuesday show. We want you to get to know us, and that, I think that makes more sense than a lot of Expats Portugal members are dealing with Ben. But yes, we are based in the UK, but we have clients that are worldwide. Time difference is not an issue, and he will take calls and questions wherever. No question is too small. Call us and we'll help with that. I think often what people it's only when you come to actually do it that you realize that maybe you need a little bit more help, or it's just the reassurance. I mean, you're probably transferring more money than you would normally do on a daily basis. Suddenly you're putting it online and you've got to press that button, and it can be a bit daunting. Or are the bank account details, are they correct? Where's my money going to be sent to? So we can double check those account details and just make sure everything's correct, so there's no issue with where the money's going to go. And often it is large amounts of money, and it goes out into the abyss. Where's my money gone? And there's that gap between being notified and receiving your account. So we make sure that we're constantly calling our customers to let them know where their money is at all times, which I think it's just that reassurance that I think they appreciate.
I think that really helps, doesn't it? And it stops people having to do that thing where they think, okay, I need to transfer 500,000, but I'll just do €1 first to see if it works, and then ring the other end to see if it's got through. I think you can help with those sorts of jitters and nerves, can't you, and calm people. Absolutely.
And again, you'll get questions, from your bank teller, from the person in the bank that you might not be able to answer. We certainly see it I think because of COVID, more and more people are banking online, which is understandable. You can't necessarily get into your branch, so they are encouraging that. But as a result, I think they've really stepped up their security checks, just as a precaution more than anything. So sending to third parties, they're just doing a little bit more checks, which is understandable. The accounts with us are in your name, but obviously there's still extra security checks, and it may be that you get asked extra questions that you're not sure again, we can answer those questions that just might help with that.
Perfect. Okay, thank you very much for that. And yeah, I suppose we should mention as well, taking calls on WhatsApp. It's not every service that would offer that, and you are multi-platform, aren't you? You sounds like you work with what is the preference of the customer.
Absolutely. Yeah. Anything. It can be WhatsApp, WhatsApp messaging, video, Zoom, emails, calls, whatever you want to use that's convenient for you.
So, because somebody did do a video call, didn't they, in the bank? Could you talk to the teller for me? And they just set up an impromptu call inside the bank, and you managed to do that.
Yes, we had a customer who was in the UK, and they struggled actually making a large transfer. They went into a couple of branches, and there wasn't anyone senior enough to authorize a large transfer, which seemed very strange. But when he did eventually find somebody, there was more security checks. So he just video called us, and we answered the questions like that with the person that worked in the bank.
It's amazing. Excellent stuff. Excellent. So carrying on with banks, then you work with all kinds of banks. You have an anecdote about the great British bank Coutts, I understand.
Yeah. So a lot of people ask, is there a better bank to transfer your money to us? Every bank is different. So, we had an example where I often say you always should check the rate. No matter how good you think your relationship with your bank is, you should always check. So this customer banks with a very old private bank. It's not Coutts, but similar to Coutts. You're probably aware of their name.
Let me just make that really clear then.
Yes, this is not Coutts.
But
it is similar to Coutts.
That's the vibe we're thinking about here. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you have a checkbook and quill still. Okay.
Yeah. Old school. So the customer has sold his business, and he needs to transfer 25 million US dollars into sterling. So I know you're thinking this is far removed from the amounts that I need to transfer, but it's the principle. He has a private bank manager. He gets a very VIP service. He's transferring a very, very large amount of money. You'd have thought he would be getting a very good rate of exchange, but it's just not the case. We're going to save this customer about $250,000 on that transfer. And he's got a private bank manager and a VIP service and a lot of money that he's transferring. So even if you've got a premium account or very good relationship with your bank, it's still always worthwhile checking, because often you're still not getting the rates that you think that you should be.
Yeah, that's amazing. You're not going to be very popular. You're very popular with the client, I'm sure, but not so much with the bank.
Yeah. As I said, it seems very strange because they promote that they offer a very VIP service, but
we didn't say anything about rates. We just
yeah.
All right. And this like for like thing then. So we had a little bit of a conversation. It was quite funny on Tuesday about this, about somebody saying, in 1976, I used to get 2.5 euros for every pound. Can you do that for me? So you don't have a time machine. You can fix rates in the future, which we should talk about for sure. But you can't match rates that were like somebody saw recently. It's got to be like for like, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I did a year abroad years ago in North Carolina, and it was over $2 to the pound, and I still missed that. So we're all kind of thinking that. But people ring up and I'll say, when did you get your rates? And they say, oh, I spoke to my bank last week, or I called them yesterday, or this, the rates move very quickly. So really, as soon as you're given a rate, it's almost out of date. So it's better if you are comparing to do it more like for like, if that makes sense.
Okay. So options then, buy the currency as and when you need it, fix rates for future payments, monitor the rates for you can do that sort of thing.
Yeah. So the scenario I mentioned earlier is buying it as and when you need it. It's very simple and straightforward, very quick. Our payments are almost instant or within 2 hours. So if you need to make a payment quickly, you can just buy it as and when you need it, and you'll save money against your bank, for example, on the day rate. But there are other things that we can do around fixing rates for future payments. So if, for example, you maybe are going to buy a property and you're given a certain date by when you need to make a payment, what's the rate going to be then? I can actually fix the rate today for that future payment. To do that, we would need a 10% deposit. It's not a cost or a charge, but it means it's fixed. And the 90%, you pay that when you need the money, and all of it's sent out at that point. So the benefits there is you're fixing into the rates. You might not have all the money available, so therefore you'd only need 10% of it to fix the rate, or you might not want to exchange all at once. You might want it kept in your account in your home country, and you only need to do that 10%. What we're finding is that with the rates, certainly for Americans at the moment, we've seen some good spikes in their favor. There are actually people are buying converting their currency now before they actually have a requirement. They definitely know that they're moving. They definitely need to move their money, but it's far in advance of when they need to make that exchange, but they're taking advantage of that rate spike. So they're buying it fully now. So it really depends on your situation. And the other thing I'd say to people is that it's okay watching out for a better rate of exchange, but also what we do as well is we also watch for the rate moving against you. We had a situation where we have a customer who was buying in Greece, and he was buying a property and it was really the maximum of his budget. And he's fixed the rate for that future payment because he knows that if the rate moves against him, he won't be able to afford that property.
Okay.
Obviously, if it moved in his favor, that would be great, but he just can't take that risk because of the budget that he's got. So everybody's situation is different. That's why we like to get to know you. We like to get to know your budget, your timeframes, what it is you're doing, and then hopefully we can help use the tools we have to get the best rates for you.
And find out if somebody's more of a bull than a bear and just wants the safety and security and just get it done, get the house bought without too much anxiety.
Yeah, absolutely.
For one example. Or the others, and they may well be here who think, oh, I might just wait and see, and just think, okay, they can make a little bit of a profit by speculating a little bit. Okay, and all are fine. Either behavior is fine by you, and you'll assess whichever way the customer wants to go. That's fantastic. Okay, so we mentioned you mentioned how you can send money to third parties, including the pool man. You mean a swimming pool guy? Don't you say it doesn't matter where it ends up as long as they've got a bank account, you can send the money there.
Yes, if you're paying them in cash, then that's different. But if you're paying them directly, as long as they've got a bank account, we can pay to them.
Basically, can go to any bank account. Okay, and of course, we mentioned before that you can hold the money as well in like a sort of virtual holding or escrow type arrangement.
Yeah, so we can receive funds in advance, and then we can hold it when you've made the exchange. Often it's convenience. If you are in Portugal and you've sold a house and the money's coming directly from your lawyer or solicitor, it can just go straight through us rather than through your account because it'll be easier. As I said, we can hold on to the money. Often you might not have opened your account in Portugal just yet, and it means that we can hold on to it till you get that account open. Again, just purely convenience for our customers. We tend to hold the money.
Superb. Okay, excellent questions coming in. Thank you, everybody, for these. But before we go there, you very kindly created a kind of checklist, Sarah, haven't you? That before you go, and you've obviously seen these situations for people where they might have been caught short by something they're not quite aware of or haven't thought. There's a lot to think about when you're selling up and moving abroad, okay? And you get this perspective, a sort of helicopter view, I suppose, of people doing this over and over again. What should people remember? I mean, one thing is the international card reader, right? You don't want to be giving that away before you leave the country or making sure you don't have to visit, come home to do a thing at the bank. These are sort of nitty gritty things, aren't they? That you're particularly good at, I think, and reminding people about.
Absolutely. Yes. I mean, that's why I say at the beginning of this, it's never too early because yes, you're focused on the rate. When am I buying it? But actually, if you can do some of this in advance, it just might make it easier to make that transfer. So we tend to see it a lot, and it comes up quite a lot, that we tend to find is that people that have looked into this before they've come to Portugal encounter less problems. Right. But again, everybody's situation is different. So we've got a customer who has money in different types of accounts, and he's really struggling to get money out of some of them because he's not in the country, and he's having to fly back to America in order to make those transfers. So again, it's just, we're dealing with a lot of customers in a similar situation to you. So we've sort of learned through things that they've done, and some of this we've learned from our customers that hopefully will help you. So definitely worthwhile investigating what you need to do before you leave your home country.
Yeah.
So the international card reader, we've heard that from some American customers, not all banks. I think SunTrust and there's a few others. You need to have that in order to make transfers while you're out of the country. I think it's a simple form that you fill in, but you need to do that in branch. If your bank doesn't have that, doesn't mean you need it. As I said, it's only for some banks that we have heard that. It may be just a case of some paperwork. Certainly in the UK, I've heard that you just literally need to fill in a form. Usually it's around, it's more to do with the amounts that you're transferring, I think, as well. In some cases, the more you transfer, the more you're going to need sort of this extra authorization because you're not there physically. Yep. And I think on the form, one of the things they do ask for is beneficiary account details. So if you do open an account if you want to use a foreign exchange broker, just make sure that you've got those details to hand, and that's what you put on that form, because ultimately they need to know where to transfer your money to, and they need it on the signed form in some cases. Whereas if you put your Portuguese bank account, the bank's going to transfer it straight to there using their bank rate.
Okay.
That makes sense.
Yep.
And that's the other thing as well with using your bank, is that they may give you a price, but you don't actually know how much it's going to cost you, or what rate you'll actually get until the transfer is actually made.
Yes.
So that can be completely different to the rate that you've been quoted when you speak to them in branch or on the telephone.
Yes.
And the downside to that is you're not going to know exactly how many euros are going to turn up in your account. And if you are sending money for a specific reason, like you're purchasing a property, you're paying rent, or you're paying a mortgage, or there's some sort of deadline or exact amount that you need, you could find that it's short, which means then you need to top up and send them a transfer, which then may incur more costs. So that's the other thing to bear in mind with the bank. But yeah, certainly look into what you need to do before you go. What was the other things? You mentioned it before about the test. That's the other thing that you could maybe think about doing as well before you go, is doing a test amount, just to make sure it's working okay. Also, with doing a test amount, it means you've then sent money to this account. So when you come to do it again, the bank sees that you've already made a transfer to this account. So that might make it a little bit easier as well.
Oh, that's good. So the little pre-test is worthwhile, because it sets a precedent for the process.
Sometimes, yes. Excellent. That's what we've seen, that the bank sees you've already made a transfer to this, and
yes,
might make that a little bit easier. Because also you might find you've made a transfer before you leave and it's gone through fine. You think, well, there's no problems. But as I said, it's when you actually step out of the country, then you realize that actually you need to put something in place beforehand. The other thing as well is online banking. If you are doing online banking, there may be a limit on how much you do each day. So it varies from bank to bank, 10,000, 20,000. You can speak to your bank and see if they'll increase that. Some will do that. They may be able to increase the daily limit. Again, if you're doing obviously larger sums, you don't want to find you're doing a transfer every day for over 2 weeks. It's a hassle. But also, again, if you've got any specific deadlines, you just need to work back from that as well, and bear that in mind when you're making those transfers.
Very good. Okay, I think that's it for the checklist for now. So should we go to a few questions from the chat? Excellent. Okay. There was a question I think we can deal with quite simply, not necessarily to do with foreign exchange, but a UK-based Stephen Jones. Are you allowed to keep a bank account in the UK as well as having an account in Portugal? I do. I don't see any problem with that. I mean, pretty much you can have as many bank accounts as you like, can't you? But that will cost you in Portugal, because they do charge you a little monthly fee over here in Portugal. I think you want to add something to that, Sarah.
Yeah, I think it depends on the bank. I think the end of last year, I saw some articles in the UK newspaper about some banks closing accounts for people that lived abroad.
Yes, me too.
So again, I don't know whether it depends on your bank, whether they're still doing that or not. So I suppose in some cases it was more around people getting their pension.
Yeah,
was more of the issue because they used to get it paid. But we can accept funds from the pension company. So you can use us in that fashion as well. So if you haven't got an account, then there's not too much of a problem.
Oh, that's the other part of Stephen's question, actually. What would be the best method to transfer monthly military pension from the UK to Portugal? Sounds like it's not a problem for you.
Yeah. So if you're in the UK, you can, depending on the pension company, you should be able to get that transferred directly to us. Or if you have it still paid into your UK account, for UK customers, you can set up like a direct debit. So we can take it automatically, and it can be monthly, quarterly, out of your account. And within that, you've got options of either fixing the rate of exchange or having the rate fluctuate, but it's just the fact it's automated, or you can transfer it as and when you want. So there's quite a lot of options within that that you can do with us.
Superb. Okay. Thank you to everybody, by the way. I didn't acknowledge and thank you before for saying hi and where you were from. Special hello to Val McGee, who's just arrived in Lisbon. We do like to say hello to everybody who's just arrived. So well done, Val. That's great news. Okay. Your backers and who the security issues, which are quite rightly people are asking about. From how I've spoken to you and spoken about Ben, it could be you two in the garden shed. Couldn't it? But we are talking about a well-established company here. Tell us a little bit more about your backers and your background of Spartan FX, please, Sarah.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, we are a newer firm. We started in 2018. The directors and myself, we've all been in the industry 15, 20 plus years. You can find us on LinkedIn and see our backgrounds there as well. But when they started the company, what they did was, as a small company, they have partnered with a very large tech firm called Currency Cloud. They do about $2 to $3 billion a month. We can certainly share some more information about them if you would like. So they've got a lot of money behind them. They've actually just been bought by Visa recently as well. But it also means that they have a lot of the regulations and licenses in place that we need to deal with customers. So the FCA authorized and regulated, and also we have the money transmitter licenses to deal with different states in America, which means we can deal with American customers. Not all foreign exchange brokers are able to deal with American customers. You need those in place. And all the money is held in segregated accounts, which means it's completely separate from our assets. So if anything happened to us as a company, your money is completely separate from the company. Yeah. And the checks that we do with the compliance, we're doing that on our customers. We're very rigorous because we're protecting all of our customers by making sure that we're sure who we're dealing with as well.
Great. Okay. Yeah, that was Jelly's question, who's here tonight as well. I read on your website the payment services for Spartan FX are provided by the Currency Cloud Limited. So absolutely right. And Jelly goes on to, is that the segregated account, which is FCA regulated? So regulation is provided by who or what, Sarah?
Yeah. So the segregated accounts are with Barclays Bank. So the protections that you have on your money are exactly the same protections you have on your money in your bank accounts that you have at the moment as well. You have that protection, and they're completely, as I said, separate from our assets.
Yeah. Okay, that's great. Okay, good to know. And how many people in the team now?
So in the team, I believe we've got 9 people now in the team. So the way that, again, that we do it, that we have 9 of the team that are front-facing staff offering the very personal services to individuals and businesses. But through our relationship with Currency Cloud, they look after the legal and compliance and back-end office side of things. So we're part of a much larger operation, but our front-facing Spartan FX is 9 people.
Great. I feel better for Ben now hearing that. Who, incidentally, Paul Richard says, is fast becoming a long-term pal. He's got a cold beer waiting for him if ever he visits the southern Portugal soon. Jim's had the, I don't know what an IBAN thing is with his bank in the US as well. It's really weird, isn't it? I think a lot of bank staff now are salespeople, aren't they? Really, more than bankers in a way, wanting to sell you the insurance or offer you a loan or something, and they're trained in that sort of thing. But you'd think those were the basics, wouldn't you? The things like
you'd have thought. I think I'd have thought by now there's more people. People are becoming more international now, I would say, than ever before. So I'd have thought that they would know about this a little bit more, but still, they just don't have the experience because they've some of them have never dealt with it before.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
I mean, even when I ring my bank for a rate just to compare, I go through about 4 or 5 people just to get to the right department to get that rate. So
Yes, they're not geared up for it in a way. But they must have that on your file. She's ringing again asking about currency rates. We know they know who you are. Okay. Um, so you talked about did you call them data issues when the news is being given out in the economic world? Oh, sorry, you had a phrase for it when news is announced in the markets, that the thing that moves the market.
yeah, data releases.
Data releases, okay. And here's a sort of data release related thing. German election is in September. A very specialist and specific question for Colin and Hakeem tonight. Good evening to you both. Do you not expect problems? Then the French elections in May 2022 could take the country into an EU hostile territory, which could, with further instability. This sounds like real money and currency talk now, doesn't it? So when to talk to the dealer about that? And in my mind's eye, sir, I've got you all at the office huddled around the monitors at these times of releases, because it's pretty profound, isn't it? And I'm guessing among yourselves, you're making predictions about where you think it's going to go.
Absolutely. I mean, around sort of certain key things, you always make sure that you have the most staff in and you're working the longest hours. In
Right.
fact, I've seen elections where you're working through the night
Really?
because, yeah, working through the night because of the rate movements, and people are trying to take advantage of whatever rate movements happen.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it's like a proper trading atmosphere at that point
It is a little bit. I mean, we're
okay.
not sort of, you'll see a lot of that out there, but we're not sort of speculative trading. It is delivery of foreign exchange. So all of our customers have a purpose, whether they be buying a property, they're moving country, they're buying a car, they're buying a boat. There's specific reasons that people are moving that money and they're taking delivery of it in another bank account, whether it be their own or a third party. That's what we specifically deal with.
Amazing. And dare you say anything about the German election and the French elections? What do you think? Not advice. It's not
No
advice.
advice, no advice. Well, I'd say again, everyone, you need to have the account open so that you can be prepared for any rate fluctuations that might happen around there. I've seen it, as I said before, with the elections, it does get very fast paced. People are ringing in all the time. It's off the hook because the rates moved and they're trying to take advantage of it. And a lot of the time, those customers don't have accounts because they haven't thought about it. And all of a sudden it's, oh, I've been watching the rate and all of a sudden it's in my favor and I want to take advantage of it, but they're not prepared for it.
Okay. Yeah, all right.
So it's never too early. But I think from some of the stuff that we've covered, as I said, looking into it now might make it easier for those transfers. A lot of the time, as I said, you're thinking about making the transfer when you actually need it. But is it easier to move the currency before you've left your home country? Quite possibly. Could I be buying it at a different time when the rate moves in my favor? Definitely. And all of that is perhaps in advance of when you actually need it, but it might just make it easier or cheaper for you making those transfers in advance of actually you needing it.
Yeah. Okay, Hakeem, I did ask, Sarah will not be drawn on what she thinks about the German and French elections here. I mean, it's about the data for you, isn't it? It's about being ready and getting the best deals. So we're not, Hakeem's French. He just wants to know what might be going on there with France and Germany, I think, quite understandably. Okay, comparison of fees then. How do the Spartan FX fees work and how do you compare to your competitors?
Absolutely. So we don't charge any transfer fees. So we just make our money on the rate of exchange. So we're very transparent there. We offer very competitive rates because of the way that I explained the setup of our business means we have a lot less overheads, which means we can pass those savings back on to our customers. I know a few of you will probably have heard of a few online brokers, and in regards to the rates, yep, we can price match or beat them. We're very competitive with our rates. But I think what you're getting is actually more for your money. You're getting the very good rate, but you're also getting that personal services as well.
Yeah. Okay. That's your USP there. I think that's understood really here now. And Earl, I think Earl's talking about you, dealing with you for some time, and except for a couple of hiccups, everything all went swimmingly, which is a word we love, swimmingly, for all amounts so far. So things happen, don't they? And it sounds like you've dealt with them admirably. Can we get a thumbs up from you, Earl? Definitely. No, he's trying to speak. Can we have a thumbs up there? A visual? Can we get a visual on that, Earl? Oh, it's
Yay.
a thumbs up for sure from Earl. So, okay. Things happen, but you've dealt with them well by the sound of it there. Donna, good evening to you over there in the Azores. Is there a minimum or a maximum amount that can be transferred? The maximum's an interesting question, isn't it? We've already talked about 25 mil.
No, there's no maximum that I've come across.
Bring it on, say Spartan.
Yeah, if you've got it, then that's fantastic. Minimum, no, not really. I mean, we have customers who transfer £50, 50 US dollars because they need to suddenly top up their account, or maybe that's for the poor man. But it really doesn't matter what you're doing, regardless of the amounts. You can use the account for anything. We have people that are just sending money they've opened their bank account and they just want to send a small amount across, or there's a test, or they're paying for their NIF number.
Yeah.
Or we have customers that are sending some money across because they've started to rent a property. They need to purchase a property. They're paying for their golden visa. They're paying for a different type of visa. They are buying a car. Lots of different reasons that people will need to use it, and it just crops up along the way. So we have a customer who used us to purchase a car, and then the other day rang us and said, "Oh, I'm thinking about buying a property. I just need to know what this going to cost me," and that was it. So again, just using us as a sounding board sometimes to question, how much that's going to cost them, or guidance on the rate there.
If I may make a little lifestyle boast about Portugal, if somebody wanted to send enough money over to Portugal to buy two people lunch, that would only probably be about 15 euros. So you're happy to send that sort of amount?
Yeah.
And it's still going to be a very good lunch, people. 3 courses each there, soup and coffee included. Maybe a little bit more for the booze. Maybe take it up to 20 euros. But Spartan FX happy to transfer that sort of amount. Americans need to know, says Kent, if Spartan FX accounts need to be reported to the IRS for FACTA. Yes, we did. We have talked about FACTA before, haven't we? And the compliance that's required there. So what can you say about that, Sarah?
Well, first of all, we're foreign exchange specialists. So anything around a visa or this issue, you always need to speak to a specialist, is what I would say. We don't report anything to the IRS. Unless obviously they knocked on our door and asked the question, but we've never had that. We don't need to. It's not a requirement for us to report this information on our clients to any government bodies. What I would say is that I know some people have said about having money in their account. Again, not to say you're avoiding anything, but we can hold funds on account for people. So that might help with that situation. We can hold money on account if it's, for example, you're buying a property or paying rental, we can hold it on account until you're ready to transfer that to that third party. The only thing that we have seen and we do know is that for the golden visa, the money has to come from your Portuguese account that's in your name. That's one of the stipulations there. So we couldn't send it direct on. It would have to go into your Portuguese account, and then you'd have to send it on from there. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it does absolutely. Yeah. So with the golden visas, pay special attention there, and obviously with the deadline too. That's hotting up, isn't it, all around the golden visa? Stephen Wells asks, can you cancel a fixed rate if it goes against you, and just use the rate on the day? So is that possible?
It is possible, but what happens is that we buy the currency then in advance, so you are locked into that. So yes, if it moves in your favour, you are stuck with that rate. If you want to cancel it, you can, but then what we have to do is we have to sell the money back to the market. So if there's any loss because the rate's moved, then we need to take that out of the 10% deposit that you paid, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
But that's only if you're cancelling it and the rate has moved, so there is a loss on there.
Yes, there's a little calculation to make.
Yeah, but a lot of people don't tend to cancel forward contracts unless, usually it's probably purchases maybe fallen through and they've decided not to look at property again and will never need the euros. Then maybe they'll do something like that. But usually we don't see that many cancelled, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But again, it goes back to your point. It depends on the customer and their, I suppose, attitude to risk. Is that some people would prefer to wait and see what happens with the rate, which we can monitor for you. We can keep you in contact so that you can be watching out either way. That some clients are more comfortable, and perhaps that's what you would like to do. Others feel more comfortable, they want to fix the rate. So that's why we've got a few different options depending on your, I suppose, personality or your situation, whichever you want to go with. So if you think that you'd rather wait and see, then we can work with you on that.
Great. Okay. Thank you. Any limits? Another interesting question. We're like delving into every possible angle here. Are there any limits on how long you can hold the money?
No, there is no limits. No. What I would say is that although it's similar to a bank account in as far as it's in your name, it's not in as far as you're not earning any interest on it. That is the only difference there. So us holding money on account is more of a convenience factor for customers. It makes it easier, and there's no time limit on how long we can hold it for, but there is no interest earned on that. That's the only thing that you would bear in mind in that instance.
Yeah, excellent. Okay. And just to, I mean, I think you've covered this really, but hi, Vanda, for you and for Earl as well, another question on social security payments and collecting funds from state pensions. That's all good, is it, for Americans?
From state pensions, yeah. So again, it depends on the provider. We could do a small test perhaps, but we've seen it work with other customers. So I wouldn't like to say categorically, yes,
that's fair enough.
Fine with everything.
Yes.
We have experience with some customers where that's working fine. But again, similar with banks, every bank's different. I mean, it's very interesting when someone says, will my bank charge me, for example, to transfer money? It varies. And what we find interesting is, especially with America, for example, people can bank with the same bank, but they can live in a different state and they're charged differently. Or some customers have a premium account and they're charged differently. So it really does, other people have different types of accounts. So bank charges and things like that can absolutely vary, or how difficult it is to transfer your money from the account, again, really does vary on a lot of different factors. But I would say from the charge perspective is some customers do bank with a couple of banks, always check to see which one is the cheapest, and probably I would use that. Do a little test as well, as we've said. And the other thing to bear in mind with bank charges, well, there's two things. One is, yes, you may be charged by your bank, that we can't remove that charge, but using a foreign exchange broker, you will save money on the rate. So you will save money regardless of the fact that there is this charge, so depending on the amounts you're transferring. So I suppose what I would do is bear that in mind is, I suppose an example, when I did my year abroad in America, I used my debit card at the time out of the to draw cash out, and it would charge me. So instead of doing $20, you do $200. So again, if your bank's charging you, maybe that's something to bear in mind, rather than just doing maybe small amounts, clump them together and do larger transfers. So you're not making as many transfers, which would save on the cost as well.
Sort of the scale, economy of scale there. So the question was also about, well, to summarize on a couple of things, because I think we should conclude on the factor thing. So really the onus is on the person with the money to work with their accountant and alert the IRS themselves. That's a sort of accountancy professional issue. Yes. With factor. Okay. And then with paying from pensions, from Social Security, it sounds like it's doable, but it needs testing, because obviously you can't vouch for every kind of incoming payment. Generally favorable. You handle most kinds of incoming payments, but you can't say categorically they're all good. But it's looking like a favorable scenario for most pensions and Social Security payments. Is that right? Yeah. Okay. All right. Excellent. Let's have a look. We'll go to a bit of a hands up Q&A after we've dealt with all the questions that are here at the moment. Took us quite a long time to get to crypto tonight. Sarah, the crypto bell hasn't rung yet this year. And I'm not sure if we can answer this, Natalie. Anything to watch out for or prepare when transferring money to Portuguese bank from investments, i.e. crypto exchanges? I mean, that's not really your kind of exchange, is it? That's more of a taxation, a capital gains issue, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, yeah, absolutely. Because if you're transferring your money, and that's how you've made it. The only thing I would say is that where I've seen instances is that certainly with UK customers, getting mortgages and things like that has been a little bit more difficult. I don't think some providers are ready for Bitcoin. So they're sort of accepting that as a sort of source of funds. That maybe you might encounter some of those problems. But again, it varies with who you deal with in the scenario. But yeah, you're right. Always speak to a specialist on that front.
Okay, excellent. Good evening, Rochelle and Manny, calling from Cape Town tonight, South Africa, interested in moving to Portugal. Tell us how we can help, both of you. It's a good call as far as I'm concerned. A little tip here, and Paul's great with these, never change money at the weekend. The rates are lower. Is that true? Is that like an old sort of financial wives' tale, or is there some truth in that?
The market's closed over a weekend. So I would say that it'd be better for you to trade during the week when the market's actually open, because as a broker, there is more risk on a weekend because the rates can move. Because what happens is that when you purchase the currency, with the brokers buying it at a risk because they're not actually settling that exchange until the market's actually open, and the market could have changed. So I'd say you're better off doing exchanges during the week. Yes.
Okay, good to know. Thank you for that tip, Paul. And never, ever accept the currency exchange on a cash machine or an ATM, right?
Yeah, no.
Do not do that. I know that's not exactly what. No. A little reminder.
No, don't do that.
Don't do that. Okay. Sarah Davey from Spartan FX. It's been amazing tonight talking to you again. Always interesting, fascinating, and we learn something new each time, as I do when I talk to you. Are you thinking to yourself, Carl didn't ask me about X, Y, or Z? Have I missed anything?
No, I think we've covered everything, to be honest, which is good. Obviously, if anyone's, again, I've tried to cover as much as possible, but all I would say is that we deal with a lot of different currency pairings. So I haven't obviously I've only touched on sterling euro and euro US dollar. So certainly get in touch and we can discuss those currency pairings and what's going on with them in more detail, and the French and German elections. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it covered.
Superb. Some thanks for coming in, Eric J. Great info. Thanks, Sarah from Vanda. Thank you, Sarah. Obrigado. Excellent. Well done, Susan, for saying obrigado. Sarah and Carl, I've learned a lot tonight. That's fantastic. Thank you very much. Are you happy to stick around for a bit more hands up Q&A?
I am, but I realise I'm now in the dark because it's getting darker now, so I have to put my light on.
It happens here. It's going to keep happening. I think now we're past the midsummer. Thanks for an interesting evening. Thank you, Malcolm, for that. And thank you, Sarah and Carl from Donna. That's superb. Okay, I'm going to turn the recording off and we'll go to a bit of hands up Q&A.